Blog Talk Radio.
How pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. This is the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast and Blog Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Beard, and I'm happy to be of service of you today. Today is May 20th, 2012, a little bit after 10 o'clock here. Yesterday, I started part one, and I'll be honest, I had no idea that 15 minutes would go that fast. You know, I was about halfway through what I had prepared and looked down at the clock and thinking, really, was it that long, or did I talk that long? You know, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we finish up today. We up the time to 30 minutes, and I want to finish up the introduction that I had with you guys yesterday, and I'll open up a question and see if we have some callers. Not really expecting any callers today, but if we do get a caller, that would be outstanding. I'll give you guys the guest call-in information. If you are listening now, that number should be on the website. You'll be able to call in, and I'll be able to answer, and I'll throw out the topic for the day. But again, this is the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast and Blog Talk Radio. Thanks for listening. To recap yesterday, I said what the purpose of this show was, and that is to enjoy the enthusiasm for college marching bands and providing avenues to discuss bandmanship, educate and expose our youth to the college marching experience, and getting more of our youth into college. Talked about my resources, the HBCU Digest, bandhead.org, Marching Sport News, the Fifth Quarter, HBCU Network, all of the resources across Twitter and Facebook that you could find. We talked about building a bridge from the west to the east, exposing more of our youth in the state of California to attend school, to see these black college bands and maybe be a part of them. I gave an introduction of myself, born in St. Louis, attended Johnson C. Smith University first. I transferred to Jackson State, where I later there finished with my Bachelor's of Arts in History. Went on to graduate school and finished with my Master's of Science in Geography. Worked in Nashville and was later transferred out here to Southern California, where we are and where I'm broadcasting from. Said that I was a Mason and I was a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Married with a daughter and a son to be on the way. And that's where we left off. I actually left off talking to you guys about the projects that we as a fraternity are a part of and the exposure that I gained by meeting with these people and working with these people. And I realized that it was not only up to me to volunteer when and where I can, but for me, myself, to create something to build my community. You know, and how not better than to use one of your own passions to get it done. And like I said yesterday, I believe I started yesterday talking about that. You know, there are not any of these type of bands on the West Coast. So immediately a lot of the youth, no matter what race they are just not exposed to seeing this. And this could even affect music for core style bands as well. It may be a different type of band, but it's still the excitement about marching bands that's really important. And we'll get into that a little bit into the topic. Why aren't marching bands as popular as sports? Sports have lots of variables and boundaries, but they're definite, whereas band does not have the same. So we'll get into that a little bit later. There's lots of information, and excited to be with you guys today. Again, this is the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast and Blog Talk Radio. Thanks for listening. Now, all of this experience I had, and being in an area where band is not prevalent amongst any race, I felt that this is my duty and this is my obligation to build that, and we're going to use this show to do that. Right now, as far as the frequency goes, in the off season, and that is off of football season, I think that this is going to go as a monthly show. We're just going to get across and get in contact with as many interviews as possible. We can have lots of talks and lots of discussions, but definitely having an interview with someone who marched back in the day, showing what they do now is very, very important, because it also provides a path for some of these youths to see where they could be. Unfortunately, there's not a professional band system. There's no NFL or MLB of professional bands. It would be the bomb to get drafted, I guess, and make six figures or something like that to actually march. I mean, who knows? Actually have, like, the Baltimore Ravens have the marching band, and, you would be paid a nice, handsome sum to go out there and march. It would be really cool, but the reality is, after college, the idea of moving on and growing up and then building for the better future is a requirement, and it's really, really important for us to show what we are doing now after we march, after we put down the plumes and after we put down the spats. What are we doing nowadays? What ideas have we had, and how can we give back to our band community? I think that's very, very important. And also the time to talk about high school kids and helping them get into college. We really want to work on a recruiting show that will go down in the same month and be geared towards high school students, trying to find auditions and scholarships to certain schools. We'll be in contact with some band directors. I definitely will be trying to get in contact with my former band directors, and try to get across to more of the youth in the western region of the country, as is anywhere, but definitely more out here in the western region of the country, so we can expose them not only to black colleges and universities and the band, but just exposing them to the education, the opportunities. That show is TBA, and that is to be announced. Not the name of the show, TBA, but it is to be announced. We're still working on that. That's a lot more of contact communication as far as pushing that out, but that's definitely what we want to do. The 90 Degree Show will be considered the flagship show of the Marching Podcast, and whatever happens or whatever shows are born from that, we'll take them as is. Again, this is the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by Marching Podcast and Blog Talk Radio. Thanks for listening. So what's going to happen here in our show is we're going to go through the resources. We're going to pick out hot topics for discussion during the week or during the month. I'll read the actual topic, read some of the comments posted, and then I'll weigh in with my 2 cents, maybe some questions, things that have gone in my mind throughout the week or throughout the month reading these comments. The next segment will be the actual interview with a former band member, or it doesn't have to be a former band member. It could be a contact or anyone really providing a positive force out there. Like I said, we just would like to see and have people get the experiences of what people are to do after college and how they are supposed to give back. So we'll have that as the second part of the interview. We'll also give them a little time to advertise and build the interest for whatever their project is through this program. The third segment, and I'm sure that this will be the best segment of the show, and that's when we'll open up the phone lines to everyone who want to talk about what we bounced out there from the first segment and or questions that you may have for the person being interviewed. We're not sure if the person will be able to stay around for the entire show, due to time constraints and schedule conflicts or what have you. But definitely if they are around for you to ask, and if you have some questions for them, we would like to have them on for the third segment, really opening the forum of discussion up to the phone lines, because there are a lot of good comments, a lot of good topics always brought up on the fifth quarter on bandhead.org, and we want to put a voice to them. We want someone to, maybe read, and once they hear something, express themselves, not only through the computer, but through a voice, through the phone. Really excited about that. There's also a chat room as part of this podcast where people can type what they feel and shoot it in, kind of like how people can text radio shows. There's a chat room, and once I get a hold of that chat information, I will definitely let you guys know. But those will be read as well. Someone may not be able to call in. They hear, they send in a message over the chat, and boom, that's all they want to do. Some of the best ones, we'll go ahead and throw out there. The final segment will be the wrap-up, conclusion, shout-outs, reminders of certain events, closing, final thanks, the benediction, as people would say. And that's it, peoples. I did not get through all of that, plus the information that I had yesterday in the 15 minutes. But, that's it. I really hope this is a show that goes in the right direction. It's a step in the right direction for our community. I hope this show is another platform for us to grow the excitement from east to west, but also provide a future. And that's really, really important. I want everyone to understand that this is something that we can continue our enthusiasm for, but let's also reach out to all the parts of the world and all the parts of the country to try to support our schools and to keep the support and the love for marching bands alive. And who knows, this could really spread on across races, across different styles of marching. We really don't know how the core style people feel. I feel there could be some resentment, some things out there as far as the popularity. There has not been a band made about core style marching, but there was one about drumline. So we kind of want to build a bridge with them as well, because music is very, very important for our future. And it's another art that allows us to express ourselves and allows us to grow socially as a society. So we want to push that. And a lot of music programs are being cut. But if we build that excitement, if we put it out there where people are paying $200 to watch a football game, we want to put it out there so that they're looking at the band product the same way, or there is some type of movement, or there's the want for that type of entertainment. And I know it's possible, and I know we can do it. So let's go ahead and put our energy forward for that, because we're going to be making the world a better place, and that's all that's important. So yeah, also, you guys are free to give your feedback, your topics of discussion, audio clips of your band that I will play on the show. I play at the introduction, and we're not big enough to have commercials or anything, but definitely at the beginning, maybe in the middle, and definitely at the end, we're going to play some audio clips. For the last couple of episodes, you've heard series played by the great percussion section of War and Thunder from Jackson State University. Shout out to you guys. Thanks for listening. But, we want to also play other bands as well. So send me your audio if you rather want to represent your school, high school or college, or whatever you think you would help the show to pump up things. Go ahead and contact us at our Twitter handle at Marching Podcast. That's at and then MarchingPodcast. And we also have an email address for Marching Podcast, same spelling, no spaces, at gmail.com. And like I said, the information about the chat room, I will shoot that out to you guys once I have it. But that is it for the introduction, and I will start to open up the radio show for calls if possible. If not, that is totally cool. We are in training wheel mode here, and that is totally cool. We really want to get used to the site. Shout out to Blog Talk Radio. I may not have said enough to them, but I found this site, and actually HBCU Digest uses this same site to put out his podcast. And, I was looking around. I said, I've been trying to work on this as well, and I'm happy I found it because I'm able to come to you guys now. And shout out to Blog Talk Radio. Thank you for providing the avenue, providing the platform for me to pursue my passion. It's a really cool site, so if you ever get a chance or, while you're listening to this show, you can mess around with it yourself. You may have a passion inside of you to do the same thing that I'm doing, and I would definitely suggest so. Let me give out the guest call-in information. You can call in at 718-664-6025. That is 718-664-6025. Have about 11 minutes left, and if we have a call, that's great. But I wanted to throw something out there, something that I posted on the fifth quarter back in September of last year, late September of last year, 2011. And that was the idea of a competition formula. Or is there a way to decide what band beats what band at every game? To me, and in my experiences, no matter what happened, some folks are convinced that they destroyed the enemy. We totally blew them out. It wasn't even close, blah, blah, blah. Then you check the tape, and it's, you don't really feel the same. You don't get the same interpretation, I'll say. And to me, it seems like nothing mattered between it's always just up for a debate and then it just dies out, Nothing's ever really decided. I guess my thing is that it's way too arbitrary. And I put this idea out there, and I got some responses. I really appreciate them. Some of the feedback was saying that we should judge on the categories of marching, sound, general effect, and degree of difficulty. That sounds like a start. One person had a really good idea about deducting from 100 and then having that being the total score. So if the total score is 100, based on the previous variables, you would deduct based on the band's performance, and then at the end, that would be their final score. You would have a panel of judges representing each conference, and you would have a musician judge, and you would have a choreographer judge, someone that's well-versed in dance, to judge some of like the dance routine, just to have as much professional opinions on all parts of the show as possible. Very insightful replies. I really appreciate them. It's still there on the fifth quarter now, where you can, if you hear this podcast or radio show, you can reply. I really appreciate it. And it made me think, what do they use at the Honda Battle of the Bands? If anyone knows, please let me know at Marching Podcast and marchingpodcast@gmail.com. Again, this is the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast and by Blog Talk Radio. Thanks for listening. But if anyone knows what the criteria they use at Honda, please let me know. What are they basing it on? Who were the judges? And if it's used there, how come it's not used as a template per se for the regular season games? Especially for the classics and neutral cities. Why isn't a winner decided? If there is a winner decided, what's the criteria? What's the formula that they're using? And who were the judges? How many judges were there? Where were they from? I remember myself, one of the greatest memories I probably will ever remember was 97, my crab year, marching against Southern University. Southern came to Jackson that year, and they got there early. They were already in the stands, chilling, warming up, and, of course, we come in playing Get Ready, as we always do, in Jackson Memorial Stadium, and Southern waited till we got in front of them to play Hey in the Middle of the Barn. Now, it was one of the greatest moments in black college bands, but it was smart because they waited to the piccolo solo of Get Ready. If you guys know the arrangement of Get Ready, there is a part where the woodwinds kind of take over. And, of course, when you have a band of all males and all brass, I guess that would be the ideal time to start playing, especially when they're right in front of you. I'll always remember that and how pissed we were marching to the stands. Shout out to WT for keeping series cranking, because it was a mess going up that ramp. But, I still heard the bass drums. I still heard certain parts of series that got us through, because, the trombones and trumpets in the front of the band, it was rough on us. But I don't want to digress into that memory too much, but my point was that it would have been great for us at the end to know that we took them out. It would have been great to look at a score and say, hey, this was our score, this was their score, they took an L. Now, they did not stay around after the game to play. They immediately packed up and left. So who knows what they were going to be waiting for after the game. And musically, of course, I'm not talking about fighting or anything, but it's still, that's what they remember, and that's what people remember, not so much how we played that game or how the battle was at halftime, But that's what Southern did, and it would have been great to do something about it. How come bands don't have records? I guess to piggyback off of the original idea, how come bands don't have records based on this criteria? Prairie View was 7-4 last year. North Carolina A&T was 8-4. And Honda always has this big selection thing, but what are they grading on to bring these bands in? My idea was that if we get some type of system, and let's say we assign records or what have you, maybe the Honda would be the Super Bowl. And it would be based on the records of the regular seasons of the bands. Maybe we would have a playoff system or maybe a regional matchup or something before the Honda. And based on those winners and based on those scores, those guys go to the Honda. There would not be a selection. And then we'd be able to determine a winner at the end. That's the best part. There are plenty of high school competitions, the DCI competitions. They're deciding winners. Why are we not using it more? I think it would help generate business, help generate money, help generate interest. Having some type of playoff bracket system and a seed system, Bethune-Cookman, had this record, so they were a 3 seed, and Tennessee State was a 4 seed, and that's going to be a good matchup. Just something just throwing out there. Again, you can call in at 718-664-6025. This is the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast and Blog Talk Radio. Thanks for listening. Wow, I just have no idea about this time. It is now 3 minutes left. So we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. If someone still wants to call, you're welcome to. That would be great. But again, this is still the introduction, and I'll save my tears and crying for no one calling later for whatever happens. But I'll keep pushing this out because this is my crux. This is something I believe in, and I'm having fun doing it, frankly. So we'll just keep doing our best. I'm sure that we'll be in contact with people in the future. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. We have the faith here at the Marching Podcast. We thank you for listening. But yeah, just those thoughts. If anyone has heard it today, or maybe I'll be throwing it out there, we could determine winners. We really could. We really could. And just wondered why. Again, this is the Marching Podcast, bringing you the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by Blog Talk Radio and the Marching Podcast. We really appreciate you listening. But the fourth part, again, will be the wrapping up show, the wrapping up part of the show. And we'll go ahead and conduct that now. Thank you very much. When you hear the band play, or when the cadence starts, you know we're about to wrap up the show and send out our thanks. Again, please send your audio files. I'll play them for the intro, transition music, and the final thanks. For all of you that know about that transition music. Shout out to HBCU Digest. Shout out to bandhead.org. Shout out to the fifth quarter. Shout out to Joe and Natalie Beard for giving birth to me. I appreciate everything you've done. Thanks to Mr. Termenstein and Lutheran North High School. Thanks to Johnson C. Smith University, Duncan C. Gray, and the double IOS. Thank you to Jackson State University. Thank you to the Sonic Boom of the South. Thank you to Trump Funk, the Royal Order of Trump Funk, and the Echoes of Hell. Thank you. Thank you to Louis Liddell, Michael Magruder, Edward Duplessis, Paul Adams. Thank you for listening, and remember, we've only just a minute, 60 seconds in it. Forced upon us, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to us to use it. We must suffer if we lose it, give an account if we abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. See you next time, guys.